What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to GA Fan TV. My name is Aaron, back again of course with another video on this channel, and of course we are looking over all the results that took place over the weekend in all the club action in both Gaelic football and hurling. Now of course, first of all, if you are new around here, if you could hit the like button and subscribe, I would kindly appreciate it. I hope you're having a great bank holiday weekend so far and a great Monday so far. Of course it is difficult to try go out and enjoy yourself as much as, you know, in previous years, previous bank holidays, when of course we didn't have the elephant in the room, which is obviously the virus, the big virus of course. But hopefully that goes away, and hopefully, you know, soon enough we can all kind of settle down and slowly go back to the way we were, or back to normal. We'll jump straight into it, obviously with the weekends, both hurling and football action. We will start with the games that actually took place on Wednesday of last week. There were some matches that took place in the Dublin Hurling Championship. Quite refreshing actually to have some matches take place on a Wednesday night, a midweek fixture. And I actually watched the first half of St Jude's versus St Bridget's. The stream unfortunately broke at half time, but it was an interesting game in that first half between Jude's and Bridget's. Of course, St Jude's were coming in on the back of a draw with Foss in their first game, and St Bridget's were coming in on the back of a win over Whitehall. And in the end, it was Bridget's who got the 6-point win. And interestingly enough, in the first half, Bridget's, despite starting very well in that first half when they got an early goal from Cathal O'Brien, I just felt that they were actually quite lackluster in terms of their accuracy of their points. You know, they had 8 wides in the first half. They weren't quite clinical enough in front of goal, and they allowed St Jude's to, you know, build up a bit of a lead in the first half. I believe they had a 5-point lead at one stage. St Jude's recovering from that early Bridget's goal. Danny Sutcliffe in particular was very good as always, one of the best hurlers in Dublin. And of course John Carthy actually looked very bright in midfield. He was very good at breaking up the play, and he hit a couple of points himself as well. But I think the big turning point, in my opinion, was the goal from Keane O'Sullivan right before half time. Very well taken goal, hitting it into the top right corner. And although I didn't see the second half, I'd imagine Bridget's kicked on massively from then. I think they hit 12 or 11 points in the second half compared to the first, so I think that was a massive difference. And they actually went 18 or 19 minutes in the first half, St Bridget's, without scoring, so a massive turnaround in that game. And if we actually have a look at some of the other fixtures from the Dublin Hurling Championship, some interesting games. Of course, we said before, Bridget's getting that 6-point win. The other game in the group, Whitehall beat Foss very comfortably in the end. Bit of a surprise win in some ways. I know Whitehall have the likes of Owen O'Donnell, and Cormac Costello is actually a good hurler as well. But Foss, of course, you know, gave a really good display against Jude's, and we're very close to getting over the line in that game. And that group is actually wide open now in terms of who could go through. Lucan Sarsfields beat Oliver Plunkett's. There was also a win for Vincent's over Ballantyre, very convincing victory there. Kilmacud Crokes made it 2 wins from 2 as they beat Crave Kieran very comfortably in that game. And Ballybone St Enda's responded from their defeat to Kilmacud Crokes in the previous round. They won 4-29 to 6 points over Scully Cunnell, and what a result that was. I mean, very convincing indeed. There was also wins for Nafina over Thomas Davis, and Kula, of course, last year's champions, made it 2 wins from 2 with a very convincing 13-point win over Satanta. And of course it will be interesting to see how the Dublin Hurling Championship plays out. A lot of those groups, some of them already settled, some teams already through, the likes of Kula for example. Okay, and then we'll move on to the Kilkenny Hurling Championship. Now obviously I already made a video on this on Friday where I discussed the game between Tullaroan and Ballyhale, but what we'll actually do is just have a look at some of the stats from the game. Of course I've been looking at a lot of GA Statsman's stats after the game, so as you can see here, so these were some of the stats from the game from Tullaroan and Ballyhale. And what we were actually saying on Friday was the fact that Tullaroan, the amount of effort and fight that they gave compared to Ballyhale, which was almost what got Tullaroan over the line. And I think the stats here kind of reflect that, because if we have a look here at the accuracy of Tullaroan's shooting compared to Ballyhale, we will see here Tullaroan had 35 shots and scored 22, 62% conversion rate, whereas Ballyhale had 41 shots, so they actually had more shots, but they had way less conversion, 48%, compared to what Ballyhale would normally do. In my opinion, Ballyhale normally a lot more clinical, probably on another day might have won this game. Of course, if we have a look at some of the scores as well, Shane Walsh with 10 points in there, Of course, Bill Gaffney, Martin Keown. Martin Keown actually had a very good game as well. And interesting enough, if you have a look at Ballyhale Shamrocks and the amount of scores that they had, a lot of different scorers on the pitch in this game. TJ Reid hit 1-5, but you've also got Owen Reid, Colin Fennelly, Owen Cody, Owen Canally, Richie Reid. A lot of different players there on the score sheet for this game for Ballyhale. Some other results then in the Kilkenny Hurling Championship. So there was a win for James Stevens over Dainsforth, and Erin's Own and Mullinavat also drew 20 points to 117. And then we move on to the Cork Hurling Championship, and some very interesting games took place, of course, in the Cork Hurling Championship this weekend. And what a win for Glen Rovers, a 14-point win over St Finbarrs. Very impressive from Glen Rovers. Of course, Glen Rovers, one of the most dominant clubs in Cork hurling at the moment. Obviously, Imokilly, the divisional side, have been very successful over the past couple of years, but Glen Rovers have always been there or thereabouts in the past couple of years or so. And when you look at some of the hurlers that are on their team, and in particular were on show in this game, obviously Patrick Horgan scoring 1-9, very impressive indeed. If we have a look at some stats again here, so Glen Rovers 320 in the game, St Finbarrs obviously 15 points. You know, and again here we can see accuracy very on point from Glen Rovers, 63%, scoring 23 of their 36 shots. We have a look at some of the scores as well. So Patrick Horgan with 1-9. Simon Kennefick, who in fact is actually Christy Ring's grandson, so very legendary player in the game in Christy Ring, and his grandson Simon Kennefick with 2-1 in this game, so he might be a star to watch out for in the future. For St Finbarrs, I mean, Owen Finn hit 5 points and Damien Cahalan hit 3. Was always going to be very difficult coming up against a very good Glen Rovers team, who are certainly one of the favourites for the hurling championship, for the Cork Hurling Championship this year, and getting off to a very impressive start in that game. So some other results worth mentioning in the Cork Hurling Championship, and there was quite a comeback from Newtown Shandrum as they beat Bishopstown by 3 points. They were actually trailing by 8 points at one stage in that game, and they managed to turn it around, so a very impressive win for them. There was a draw between Carricktoohill and the Piershig, 117 each. New Chestown also got a win over Killee by 5 points, and Fermoy beat Mallow by 2 points as well. So if we move down to Waterford, there were a couple of results here worth mentioning. So there were wins for Rowan Moore, Passage and Lismore. Interestingly enough, Maurice Shanahan hit 217 in that win for Lismore. A very impressive performance from him indeed. I believe Lismore hit about 221 or 222 in this game in total, so the fact that Maurice Shanahan scored almost 90% of their scores is very impressive indeed, hitting 217. I believe 14 of them were from frees, and then 1-3 was from play, and another goal was from a penalty. Also a very good win for Abbey side. They beat Ballysargart by 20 points. And then in Limerick, the Piershig got themselves a win as well. They responded to their defeat from Kilmallock a few weeks ago with a 20-point victory over Ahane. Very impressive indeed. And Adrian Breen, who did play very well in that game versus Kilmallock 2 weeks ago when he of course got himself a goal, was on the score sheet again, and William Henn also had a very impressive performance as well, getting the other goal. If we move on to Wexford, so there were also wins for Nave Aina. Ularta Balag also got their first win as well, so they responded from their defeat from a few weeks ago against St Martin's. And there was also a win for Glyn Barntown as well, so a good result for them. And the draw was also made for the Wexford Hurling Championship as well, which certainly put some interesting teams together. I believe St Anne's, Ularta Balag have drawn each other in that draw, so they're two teams that are normally knocking on the door year in year out when it comes to the Wexford Hurling Championship, so be very interesting to see how that game goes of course as well. Certainly St Martin's will still be the favourites. I mean, very convincing in their first two games, getting over the line, so it will be interesting to keep an eye on the Wexford Hurling Championship and see how things play out. Okay, and then we move on to Gaelic football, and there were some very interesting games that obviously took place in Gaelic football. We've seen the start of the championship in Galway and also in Mayo as well, and we'll start with Galway because I mean, we have to speak about that display by Corofin, who comfortably beat Oughterard. I mean, not just comfortably, they absolutely demolished them by 27 points. You almost feel bad for Oughterard in many ways, you know, intermediate All-Ireland winners and playing your first game against the senior club All-Ireland winners, and in the end Corofin just absolutely annihilated them, especially in that second half. Funnily enough, in the first half it was actually quite even at times. There was, you know, only 3 or 4 points between them, and Kieran Malloy was obviously given a black card, and that gave Oughterard a bit of a chance to get back into the game, but they were just at times a little bit wasteful in front of goal. And in the second half, Corofin's fitness really shone through, just levels above Oughterard, and they just went on an absolute absolute blitz of scoring goals incompletely. I mean, Dara Silk was outstanding. He had 2 goals, a couple of very well taken points as well. Dylan Wall, Michael Cooley, Michael Lundy and Michael Farragher all getting on the score sheet as well. So very impressive from Corofin. It's going to be very difficult to see if anyone can stop them in Galway. And the funny thing is, normally in the Galway Football Championship, they actually take a bit of time to get going. You know, you think of that final last year against Tuam Stars, they were basically beaten in injury time, but they managed to rescue a replay. I mean, to start like that, very impressive. I think even if you're a Galway fan, you'll be impressive to see that some of these players that played so well for Galway in the championship are basically playing at a similar level, and that was obviously great to see from Corofin as well. Some other results worth mentioning in the Galway Football Championship. So Salthill got a win over St Michael's, a 12-point win. John Marr, Rob Walzer were the standout players in that one. Mount Bellew also got a very good win over Annadown, a 2-point win in fact. Very entertaining game from what I've heard, so fair play to Mount Bellew getting a win there. There was also a very surprising win as Caherlistran pulled off a shock 2-point win over Tuam Stars, who we were just talking about. Tuam Stars were seconds away from beating Corofin in last year's final, and Tuam Stars unfortunately have lost in the opening game this year against Caherlistran. So who knows? I mean, who knows how Caherlistran could be this year, and Tuam Stars maybe not quite up to it this year compared to previous years. If we move on to Mayo, so the reigning champions Ballintubber drew with Achmore. It was an interesting one because Killian O'Connor was sent off, in fact. Now I didn't see it, but it was a straight red, so it'll be interesting to see what the story was with that. But in the end, of course, that red card did make a significant difference because there was a late goal from James McNabe with a late goal, earned the East Mayo side a draw in this one. And for Ballintubber, certainly I think the main focus for Ballintubber would always be to try and win the Connacht Football Championship, which obviously can't happen this year. You know, getting through Mayo is kind of the first step of the puzzle in many ways, but certainly getting off to a draw and the best start from them in this game. Some other results worth mentioning in Mayo, so the 2019 finalists Ballydoreen, who were beaten by Ballintubber last year, they got a victory over Belmullet. Castlebar Mitchells, who have a very star-studded team, the likes of Paddy and James Durkin, also got a win as well over Charlestown Sarsfields. They beat them by 3 points. So some other results worth mentioning then, of course, across the country. There was a very interesting game between Simonstown Gales and Screen in Meath. Shane O'Rourke hitting one of the best sideline cuts you will see this year, and Patrick McKeever hitting 8 points as well in that 6-point win. Very impressive game, very impressive performance from Simonstown Gales, getting that win, getting off to a winning start in the Meath Football Championship. Be interesting to see if they can, of course, go all the way this year and beat the likes of Ratto, who of course won the championship last year. Carrick Macross got a very famous win over Castleblaney, a 7-point win, and Castleblaney, one of the most dominant clubs in Monaghan, so fair play to Carrick Macross getting a win there as well. Some other results in Donegal, so Glen Finn got a surprise 6-point win over Killybegs. Gerard Ward actually hitting 8 points in that one, and Westmead's most dominant club, Gary Castle, got off to a winning start as well, beating Athlone by 4 points. So some interesting games, of course, going on up and down the country. Of course, I might have missed a few interesting ones there as well, but we will get on to some fan reaction now, and we'll look at what some of you lads have to say, and there might be some more results worth mentioning. Alright, so this first tweet here is from Kevin Savage, and he says, sure, what else would you be doing on a Friday night? No need for the floodlights. And of course the GA did release their guidelines, I believe it was just before the weekend started, just in regards to allowing some supporters back to watch a lot of games. So good to see a lot more fans getting to matches this weekend as compared to previous weekends where they had to go on cranes and tractors and all sorts of stuff. This was another tweet that was here from Rob Toole. He said, streaming live GA football from Galway here in Boston. Thanks to Sport BO for making it possible. As someone who has lived abroad before in Canada, I do understand this feeling of it's very difficult to stream games and watch Gaelic football when you are abroad. So this is one of them circumstances where for people who are living in America, Canada, Australia, the streaming service is something that I feel like a lot of clubs in the GA should look at in future circumstances, because it has a lot of benefits for people who are abroad and want to try keep in touch with the game. So Tommy Rooney here says, of all the footballers Meath missed out on to injuries or other sports from 2010 to 2020, none of them come close to the loss of Shane O'Rourke. The man would have been a colossus at inter-county level. And yeah, what a performance that was from Shane O'Rourke of Simonstown Gales. Michael Cook here says Pat Horgan would nutmeg a mermaid And you know, look, listen, you wouldn't put it past Pat Horgan. What a goal that was in that game versus St. Finbarr's. Really well taken goal, hitting it to the left of the keeper into the left hand corner. Very impressive indeed from Patrick Horgan. A tweet here from Ewan McKenna. So he says, having not watched football for a while, forgotten what an abomination the forward mark is. GEA are always needlessly tinkering and playing with too many rules, but don't think any change has torn apart a key dynamic and key part of the fabric of the game to some extent. And I mean, I mentioned this a little bit last weekend, of course. There's always a lot of changes in the GEA. They're always making changes, especially in the past couple of years, and it is a little bit annoying. I kind of just wish they just let it be now for a while, because I feel like when you're constantly making changes, it's just hard on managers, on players, on officials to keep in touch with everything. And I feel like it'd be nice if they just kind of let it be for a while. I feel like the advanced mark was not something they really desperately needed. I don't think there was anyone that was really calling for it. Tommy Rooney was also with another tweet here. So this was actually a game in the Clare Football Championship. We have a look at the goal here. So what actually happened was, it was St. Brecken's who were going forward. They put the ball into the back of the net, but it was called back for a free, and then one of the opposing defenders was looking to clear it. It ended up hitting it off the back of one of his own defenders, and the ball fell to one of the St. Brecken's players, who simply tapped the ball into the open net. I mean, so unlucky, and I've watched this so many times, and I still have no idea what happened here when the defender was coming out with the ball. I don't know how it's almost like he was doing it on purpose. I don't know how he managed to hit it in the back of his head. Very, very odd indeed, very strange. And certainly a very horrible way to lose a game. I believe this was the deciding goal as well. So just absolutely crazy there in the Clare Football Championship. Okay, so now we'll have a look at some of your Instagram poll questions that I put out here. So first one here says, what a clutch result for Kenmare against Temple. No. And I believe there was a late turnaround for Kenmare. They got a late victory. So fair play to them in getting that one over the line. There was something else here. Buncrana, senior men's footballer, had a good win at the weekend. So Buncrana getting another good result there. The Bridge got a mighty win in the derby. Now I'm not too sure who he's referring to, but congratulations on that one. Another thing here, so Tullaroan, very unlucky. The Glen will win a Cork championship in my opinion. Corofin, immaculate. Absolutely, Glen Rovers looking very good at the moment, especially with that start, especially with obviously having Patrick Horgan fit and ready for the season. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on as the season progresses, of course. Something else here, another comeback from Lawn Rangers, coming from 8 points behind to winning by a point. Lawn Rangers always getting a mention. Something else that came in here, so Caherlestrand could be good this year after beating Tuam Stars, and of course we mentioned that. I was speaking a little bit earlier about their victory over Tuam Stars, and look, listen, who knows? I mean, I don't have enough information about the Galway Football Championship to really know why Tuam Stars didn't get that victory there, but you just never know. Caherlestrand could have a good few young players coming through, and they could be onto something this year. You just don't know. Carryduff won by the last free kick of the game. We're 2 points down, and they had all the men on the line. I do believe I've seen a video on this on Twitter, so if I find it, you'll see it on screen right now, but it was literally a last minute game in the Antrim Championship, I believe, and it was just insane scenes altogether. Corofin putting 7 goals away against Oughterard. Madness, absolutely. Just and I suppose we'll finish on that note. Corofin, really the team on everyone's lips at the moment, and you know, if some people were trying to downplay the hype about this Corofin side and saying too many people talk about them too much and whatnot, well, they've just literally shown exactly why so many people speak about them. I mean, they just absolutely blitzed Oughterard, and you know, scoring 7-17 in any game at senior level is extraordinary. And Oughterard, you know, were intermediate All-Ireland champions last year, so they're no pushovers by any stretch of the imagination. So what a win indeed for Corofin. And look, listen, obviously they would have had their eyes on the All-Ireland Club Championship and Connacht and whatnot, but for them to start as dominant as they did, I feel like I put out a statement to the other clubs in Galway as well, because some other clubs in Galway might say maybe Corofin will take their eye off the ball this year with no All-Ireland Club Championship, but absolutely not, because they've just shown they certainly do have their eyes on the ball indeed. Anyway lads, that's going to be the end of the video. Do leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Do let me know down in the comments below what games you watched at the weekend. I will hopefully be back on Wednesday. There's a couple of games on in the Dublin Football Championship that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Hopefully, if all the streams hold up and everything works, I'll be able to watch one of the games there and hopefully speak a bit about it after the final whistle. Anyway, that's going to be the end of the video. My name is Aaron. Have a lovely weekend. Have a lovely Monday, and I'll see you later.